In this video, I'll be continuing my discussion of the wide receiver position for 2022 fantasy football and focusing in on 3 players in the later rounds of our drafts that I classify as must draft players. These, of course, are 3 players I'm very bullish on for this season, whether that's some sort of draft day value, upside, or something else. There's a specific reason that I'm really into each of these players and want to have them on my roster for this year. I've been posting fantasy football content like this every single week all summer long, and we're going to ramp things up even further once the 2022 season kicks off. So if you're new around here, make sure to drop down, click that subscribe button, and turn the bell on so you're never late for a new piece of content. Also, you guys, I would really appreciate it if you'd check out some of the links in the description of today's video. There's a lot of good resources down there. It helps out the channel when you guys check that stuff out. And of course, like I said, we're trying to help you guys dominate your leagues this year, and there's a bunch of stuff in there that can help you do so. With that being said, kick back and relax, you guys. We've got 3 players coming right up. Let's get started. Here we go. So Skyy Moore is the first player we'll be talking through in today's episode. This is actually a player I've been really pumped to dive into a little bit more since he has landed with the Kansas City Chiefs. I did a ton of content and talked ad nauseum about him during the draft day period of the NFL year, or whatever you want to call it. The NFL calendar, of course, that we're all living on, waiting for kickoff to start again here. But Skyy's been someone that throughout the majority of the summer I haven't really touched on too much. We're doing that here today, though. He is currently the wide receiver 44 on Underdog Fantasy's ADP. I think it's the best in the game. If you guys don't know why, you've got basically insightful picks coming from every single selection on their boards, and he's the 8th pick in the 8th round of those draft formats. So clearly still a player who, these are late round picks. I did classify that in the beginning of today's video. Not super late, though. We'll be diving into some even deeper sleepers, if that's what you want to call these guys, in future episodes. We have some time here, a couple of weeks before the season begins. I'll be doing draft content all throughout now until then, and then obviously, like I said in the intro, getting you guys your content throughout the entire season. So what do we love about Skyy Moore? Essentially, my draft day analysis of him, or my pre-draft analysis, really, I didn't just come up with this stuff the day he was being drafted, but the things I loved about him were on film. He's a player who I thought could be a quarterback's best friend. I saw a lot of opportunity for him to not only be a very successful slot receiver, but also the ability, because of his speed, which is very underrated, to press vertically and make things happen downfield. Obviously, those are 2 traits that are very, very valuable to this Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, kind of co-piloted offense, I guess. That was really bad, whatever I just tried to do there. But basically, you've got yourself a very high-powered offense with a phenomenal play caller and a phenomenal quarterback. And I think Skyy Moore is someone that can definitely reap rewards and be very successful playing in that system. So that in its own, just the landing spot for Skyy Moore was very, very exciting. But now out of training camp, we're getting some really positive news in terms of his usage, in terms of how he's been making splash plays all over the field. He's been lining up in the backfield. He's someone who, like I said, is both a slot and perimeter weapon. He has underrated speed. He is a guy that runs really, really solid routes, and after the catch, he can be quite deadly as well. Now, of course, as high as I am on Skyy Moore, the talent, and Skyy Moore, the player, we wouldn't be this high on him in fantasy had it not been for the Tyreek Hill departure. Clearly, Kansas City is still searching, and evidently we won't figure out who it's going to be until probably the first month or so of the season, but they're looking for their new top wide receiver. We all know what Travis Kelce is. We know that he can have a pretty large plate in terms of eating up targets in that Kansas City offense as a safety blanket for Patrick Mahomes, but somebody else has to step up here. There's other elements at play, and of course, between Juju Smith-Schuster, Skyy Moore, Mecole Hardman, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and the other slew of players in the backfield, you've got a lot to make up for. You've got 159 targets vacated from Tyreek Hill. Now, I'd be a fool to sit back and tell you here that Skyy Moore is going to absorb even 130 of those targets. However, I do think that for a team last year that was so dependent on the pass game, and I would argue still doesn't really have a strong case to be made for a very, very productive rushing attack, this will still remain one of the top passing volume offenses in the league. Last year, the Chiefs were number 2 in team passing plays per game with 39.9, nearly 40 passing attempts per contest. So there's a lot of volume at play here, a lot of volume to be had. I think Skyy Moore could easily rack up, between him and Juju Smith-Schuster, the top 2 players that I see being productive for fantasy purposes at the wide receiver position. Both of those guys having very, very nice ceilings, or in seasons rather. Yes, ceilings as well, but seasons is what I intended to say there. So basically, I think that Skyy's utility is what will be so valuable here, though. If you're lining up in a multitude of positions, having, increased opportunities for success, and we know how creative Andy Reid can be in his play calling and designing, I think Skyy will find very, very exciting ways to touch the football. I think he'll be very efficient with his touches. And I think that for an offense, again, led by Patrick Mahomes, of course, there's always scoring distance opportunities and the opportunity to strike very, very quickly. So the last thing I want to point on here, of course, is just going back to that speed, his ability to win vertically and press defenders downfield. That's something that pairs very nicely with Mahomes. Obviously, you've kind of got that stereotypical bazooka arm from Madden, if you know what I'm talking about, his superstar X Factor. Probably not exactly the most relevant thing for fantasy football, but the point being, the dude's got a cannon. He has a rocket for an arm. He can launch that ball downfield, and the fact that Skyy Moore can separate downfield is huge in terms of, again, going back to that efficiency I just talked about, really outlining just how he can get there, because he's able to make big plays downfield and isn't just a catch and tackle guy that is, at the end of the day, just a safety blanket and really doesn't bring much else to the table. So he also has nice draft capital. The last thing I'll say here, a second-round pick for Kansas City. I think he'll be highly valued and very incorporated early into that offense. Christian Kirk at the number 2 player, or not really, these aren't rankings or anything like that, but the second player we're talking through today is Christian Kirk, the wide receiver 41, being drafted slightly earlier than Skyy Moore. He is the 11th pick, so the second to last pick in the 7th round, so not quite an 8th round pick. He will fall there every once in a while. Obviously, if you're a bubble ADP player, you can either go earlier or slightly later than what your draft value currently has, because obviously the ADP is the average draft position, so it's an average of all of the selections that have been made at that position to a given point in time. So what I like about Christian Kirk, we did talk through him once already this offseason in a very similar video, but this is a great opportunity for a fairly good player. He's no Devontae Adams. He's no Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, or Jamar Chase, but he's a nice player. He's a guy who, when fed the football at a high volume, at a high rate, can do some things with the rock in his hands. We saw last year he had kind of a semi-breakout season. On just an 18.1% target share, it did have 103 targets. The Cardinals were a high-volume passing offense, but for a guy who saw 18% of that offense, I think as the clear top option, as Trevor Lawrence's potential and, again, very likely favorite target at this position group, 23 to 25% of the Jaguars' target share is not out of the question here. This is a team that, when you kind of contextualize that target share, that could actually be quite a high number as well. We're talking 140 plus targets potentially, because of the fact that this is a team we still expect to have negative game scripts, a team we expect to be trailing late in fourth quarters, trying to catch up. I think they'll be much better this season. They've got better leadership. Obviously, they added talent to the draft, free agency, big spenders on Christian Kirk, notably here, with one of the richest potential salaries in the NFL, a lot of unguaranteed money, but nonetheless, the incentives are there to make those a huge annual payout. So the point is here, you've got a really talented quarterback entering his second season in Trevor Lawrence, who could be primed for a breakout. The Jags did a really nice job of surrounding and leaning into what he is offensively. Obviously, J-Rob coming back is a big help. Travis Etienne coming back is a big help. You talk about Marvin Jones, a veteran, someone who, is not the most flashy receiver, but can still contribute a little bit. I think Christian Kirk does obviously surpass him, but there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of things to like here. And at the end of the day, volume is king. If you're getting a certain amount of looks per game, so many of those, might hit the ground, but you're still going to have the opportunity to catch passes, score points, and like I said, the situation just kind of lines up nicely here for a high slate of opportunity in this Jacksonville offense. He's only competing at the wide receiver position with Laviska Shenault, who is arguably just a big slot receiver in this offense, may or may not break out. I kind of like drafting him as a flyer at the last pick in my drafts. However, nothing guaranteed there. You got an aging Marvin Jones Jr., 32 years old this season, kind of had some minor regression last year. Maybe that was some bumpy roads with Trevor Lawrence in year one. And then Evan Ingram, Travis Etienne as well, but Evan Ingram's not someone that really concerns me at this point. He's had a pretty shaky career the last few seasons with drops and just not being a consistently reliable target. Kirk, a couple stats to reference, was 15th in deep targets last season, so despite the fact that he was arguably the Cardinals on their depth chart, their wide receiver 3, yes, he was their most productive guy. AJ Green and D-Hop were actually, less statistically productive overall. But you still got a guy who, despite not being a concise number 1 target, was in the top half of league starters in terms of deep opportunities. He was 12th in total route wins, and he was 13th in slot snaps, which if you watch the channel, you know I love slot snaps. If you're able to run routes at a high level, running an in-breaking or an out-breaking route is really hard for a DB to guard, and it just adds to your versatility in terms of the route tree you can run to have success. So a lot of stuff to like about Christian Kirk. He's not necessarily a foolproof piece here, but someone who I think has a lot of opportunity to offer you big time return on investment. The last player I want to talk about here, I don't think I've talked about him once actually in his own specific video for redraft leagues. That of course is Chris Olave out of the University, or really just Ohio State. I don't know why I said that. He's the wide receiver 43 right now. He is a guy who is the 5th pick in the 8th round of 12-team formats, and he is also an absolute speed demon. Now I kind of leaned into some of the stats I wanted to talk through in today's video and yesterday's video. However, for Mr. 4.39 40-yard dash, a guy who has a 94th percentile speed score, I love, and some silky smooth routes if I don't say so myself. They call him Mr. Smooth actually at Ohio State. I think he is the best talent pair with Jameis Winston on the Saints roster. Yes, Jarvis Landry and Michael Thomas, proven veterans, guys who, can work the middle of the field, very pristine route runners. Chris Olave is a pretty dang good route runner as well. Cut that film on from Ohio State, see him get out of his breaks off the line of scrimmage, chop those feet and move laterally very quickly. He's also a heck of a lot faster than both of those players. I think that the vertical weapon in this offense is unquestionably Chris Olave. I almost said Chris Godwin there for a second. And you've got a situation where Chris Olave is also a player who I think has a chance to be a supreme rookie breakout this year. This is a guy who is lighting up training camp. I keep saying this is a guy. I feel like, what's his name? Chris Collinsworth from Sunday Night Football. I should probably cut that out. I'm sure I'm annoying the heck out of some of you guys. But nonetheless, he has a big ceiling. I think that for a quarterback in Jameis Winston, who has had a season in 2019 that produced 2 top 5 fantasy wide receivers in points per game, why not Michael Thomas and Chris Olave? I know he's evolved as a player. The Saints offense is different than that Bucs offense was, but the ceiling is there. The ability to have a very, very productive ceiling. Maybe he doesn't hit early. Maybe he's not someone that breaks out week 1, but maybe, 4 to 6 weeks into the season, as the offense starts to open up here, those deep targets start hitting downfield, and he's getting more volume on a week-to-week basis. This is a team that is a predominantly passing-first offense, because even Alvin Kamara, their star running back, excels best in the receiving game. So I like the Saints offense this year for Chris Olave. I think, again, the quarterback combination is very, very nice there. I don't think that's always the case. I think it is a very unique situation, again, with a quarterback who's not an elite blue-chip player that still provides his offense and his surrounding playmakers with elite fantasy football potential. So there you have it. 3 late must-draft players. If you enjoyed today's video, of course, make sure to drop down, smash that like button, click that subscribe button if you're new around here. Let me know in the comment section below what you thought about today's players. Let me know what types of videos you want to see next, all that good stuff. Scan the QR code in the top right-hand corner of your screen for some extra help in your leagues this year. I'll get you guys hooked up with in-season lineup advice all year long. And of course, if you use promo code SFS on Underdog Fantasy, deposit $10 or more, up to $100, they will match you. So, you put $10 in, 20 to play with. You put $100 in, $200 $5 to play with, again, with code SFS, and you'll get season-long site-wide access on sizzlefantasy.com, which if you sign up now before your drafts, includes the draft guide. So check all that great stuff out. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.